My name is John Njovu. I'm the coordinator of the Voice Project in Africa. Welcome to this EvalIndigenous Voice Project's recording. I would like you to introduce yourself.
Greetings, colleagues. My name is Chris Mulaudzi.
Which ethnic group do you belong to?
I'm a Black South African who belongs to the Venda people who reside in Limpopo. My country is South Africa.
Who are your employers?
I work for an organization known as the Independent Development Trust, based in South Africa, where I'm general manager for corporate performance and governance, including strategy and, in some ways, monitoring and evaluation.
Are you a member of EVOPE?
I'm a member of SAMEA, South African Monitoring and Evaluation Association.
What does indigenous mean to you?
Being indigenous to me means being someone who is indigenous to a particular country, someone who was brought up, who was born and bred, and whose ancestors were also born and bred in a particular country. So then dating back many years, many generations back. That is really what it means.
Do you have a translation for monitoring and evaluation?
In terms of the translation, it's quite difficult to give a true African explanation of what monitoring and evaluation is about in my own language.
Tell me your experiences in your evaluation journey.
I have not done indigenous evaluation as such, but I've been involved in monitoring and evaluation for a very long time, starting first as a monitoring and evaluation officer in what was then known as the Department of Land Affairs in South African government, in the Department of Land Affairs, which was responsible for implementing a very big land reform program. Land, as you know, in South Africa is a very emotive issue. So that's where I started in the civil service way back in 1997, over 25 years ago, I think. And I was a monitoring and evaluation officer who did assessments of how far those who had received land were doing, in terms of whether their lives had changed. We did that through surveys known as quality of life surveys at that time. And over the years, I think there was a lot, even after I left, they started doing proper evaluations. And after that, I left. After 10 years of doing land reform, I spent another 10 years in the Department of Social Development, but corporate I was doing more monitoring of program performance. But within that space, I worked also closely with colleagues who were doing evaluation.
Have you got any example when an evaluation was done very well, and what was the benefit for the beneficiaries?
An impact evaluations, and one of the biggest that was publicized throughout the world, evaluation of the child support grant, which is part of South Africa's social security program, which is just to create a bit of a safety net for those who are not able to work. That's for children between very young age, from birth to at least their 18th age. That is the child support grant. So we found that there were very many beneficial effects. There were many benefits to the grant, in that people who received that, recipients of that, were more likely to stay, where they were likely to stay in school longer. There were health outcomes. The health outcomes were better. They tended to perform better at school as well. And they were less likely to be caught up in teenage pregnancy, because I think that stimulated their ambitions. They did a lot better.
Where did you learn about indigenous evaluation?
In terms of where I learned about indigenous evaluations, I'm a member of IDEAS, so that's where I came to know about it for the first time, I think in 2015, after the IDEAS Global Assembly in Bangkok, Thailand. There was, I think a week or two later, there were people who went to, some of the colleagues, including Dr. John Njovu from Zambia. I think they went to some Asian country. I can't remember whether it was Mongolia or Kazakhstan, but there was that thing. That's when I became aware of in this indigenous evaluation thing. I think at that time there were also issues around visiting parliamentarians throughout the world in Sri Lanka, as well as up there in those areas that I've spoken about, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, those states, the former Soviet republics, or well, in the case of Kazakhstan, of course.
What do you find as most challenging as an indigenous evaluator?
Recently, the closest thing I've done to an evaluation was to do a client satisfaction survey, because I work in a company that deals now with, it's a state-owned enterprise that focuses on social infrastructure and building schools, clinics, courts on behalf of government departments, both local, provincial, and national. In addition to that, we also manage on behalf of the Department of Public Works a program known as a mass employment program known as the Expanded Public Works Program, which employs every 5 years. The targets for every 5 years is to create, I think, 1 million jobs and all that. These are just mass employment programs. People will be doing all manner of work. So what we did, what came out of that survey was that first, through our programs to broaden access for previously disadvantaged people onto the built environment industry, either as architects, as engineers, as quantity surveyors and all that, people that we appoint to provide the service in the building of schools and all that. Some of them were very touched by a story that came out of a 33-year-old young man who says, he's a quantity surveyor, I think. He has been able, through the kind of work that he was doing with us at the Independent Development Trust, his company is now able to employ 15 professionals who are actually doing very well in the built environment sphere. And that is part of our aim, the goal of government, to broaden access to the profession of the built environment profession, so that Black people who were previously disadvantaged are able to participate in it. And some have taken advantage of that, and they're participating very, very well, as is the case with this young man. And with respect to the mass employment program known as the Public Works Program, we were very touched by some people in poor rural areas in the Karoo, just in some desert areas, in the desert-like areas in South Africa towards the Cape, who are very pleased that they're able to, through the stipends that they get, because there isn't really much, they're able to afford basic necessities such as food. They're able to pay for their children at early childhood development centers, so that the children are able to have access to early learning. And those are very good outcomes, because they also contribute to the development in the country. It kind of contributes to building a proper workforce that is more educated, that is more through the exposure to early learning. As you know, the first 1,000 days of a child's life are the most important. They're most defining. So we are very pleased to know that through our interventions, people are able to send their children, to afford the kind of learning, to afford sending their children to these centers. They're able to afford their own food supplies, and it boosts morale as well. And I think that is what the social development outcomes are. Those are very positive outcomes that we would like to know. And of course, as you know, when we build schools, we're able to increase access to education for a whole number of people. If you are able to build those schools efficiently within budget and deliver them on time, so that means that more and more people, particularly those in disadvantaged areas, are able to have access to education, which also has very positive outcomes for the entire country, for the entire nation, in terms of human development and human resource developing the capabilities of our people. So we feel very pleased indeed when people are able to have that impact, when we know that our programs are able to build towards ensuring that the national development goals of South Africa are met through our programs. As you know, we have a program known as the Vision 2030, which is the National Development Plan, which has a number of goals. But the central goal of the National Development Goal, obviously, is to reduce poverty levels by creating employment, by creating a lot of opportunities for people to work. That can only take place through access to education. And the programs that the South African government has been implementing since have actually been, in terms of the social assistance, in terms of just also giving the social wage, providing free school uniforms to children, free basic services like water, housing, and electricity, are meant geared towards ensuring that we have a constant supply of people who are able to have the human development strategy of the country. We're able to promote social development as it is in its broad sense. So we are kind of pleased that some of our programs are having that kind of desired impact. So that is what I think will be my contribution.
Any messages for VOPEs like SAMEA, AFRIA, SAMEA to government and the donor community?
In terms of any message to commissioners or evaluators in Africa, is that what I've noticed through my interactions with colleagues from the rest of the African continent and indeed elsewhere, is that evaluation is taken very seriously, has been streamlined not only into the South African government system, which has a separate ministry of planning, monitoring, evaluation. But I think I've met a number of colleagues from Nigeria, from Zambia, from Uganda, and elsewhere, who are very rigorous statistically, who are very who are real champions of evaluation. Through our freer conferences, you have them speak, and they speak with authority on issues of evaluations. And that, I think, gives us so much hope that this discipline will thrive, this discipline will grow over time.
Do you have any message to funders of building national MOE capacity across Africa?
The message that I would like to send to donors, to governments, is that let's continue to encourage this culture of evidence-based planning, the culture of evidence-based decision-making or evidence-based policy-making, because in the end, we are able to see the impact, we are able to assess the progress on what we are doing, and all our plans are informed by real scientific evidence. So evaluation is not just a must-have, but it is something that we really have to have in order to ensure that our policies are informed by the needs of the people. They are geared towards the needs of the people, and that we are able to take proper, real policy choices that are impactful in a very positive manner. So I think we need to be able to dedicate, governments and donors should be able to dedicate some resources towards building monitoring and evaluation capacity, particularly the evaluation side of things, so that we are able to measure progress towards meeting our goals or the goals of all national governments. So we really need to build M&E capacity.
Thank you for having spared time to take part in this interview.
On that note, I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this study or in this little research. I hope I have made a little contribution that will be useful for you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Cheers.